which is a off-street policies, transport parking, strategy and final off-street parking delegation.
Your Worship.
And we have, yes, I know that's Rose, but who?
Scott Everett from Auckland Transport, Your Worship.
Yeah, excellent.
He's the
And
Auckland Transport Parking Manager.
Right, very good. There we go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors, this is the report is a refreshed delegation is needed because of the bylaw that you just passed, and it has to come to this committee because bylaws need to be, the delegation needs to come to the governing body. It's a fresh delegation that expands on the existing one that you gave late last year, and the expansion just allows Auckland Transport now to be able to enforce, to infringe on beaches. And the reason why this is necessary is because currently the only mechanism open is towing on beaches, and that's become a problem. Some of the towies won't actually tow. So we've just expanded it to enable Auckland Transport to be able to infringe on beaches, and also it allows them now, with the authorisation of the facility manager and taking into account the views of local boards, the ability to set new restrictions and enforce on car parks associated with community facilities. So they're already able to do that with respect to car parks associated with parks and reserves, and also with libraries. So this is just a slight expansion on those things. The report also asks you to endorse 2 of the parking strategy policies that specifically relate to off-street parking, because off-street parking is within the rights of Auckland Council rather than Auckland Transport. So that's it's a fairly straightforward report. I'm happy to take questions.
Very good. Thank you.
Happy to move it, Mr. Chair.
Happy to second.
Right, moved and seconded by Councillor Chris. Anyone want to speak on this? Councillor Chris?
Just very briefly, I have a chat with Rose about this. There are some issues around the pressure of parked vehicles accessing a bus station, and I'm sure this will happen in other parts of Auckland, where the park and ride is now occurring in a car park that supports a community house or that supports users going to a park. And this will address it, and the previous directions would have addressed it as well. But what I've just discovered is that the onus of cost for investigating that and putting in the controls falls either on the parks budget, the community facilities budget, or the local board budget. And I personally don't think that's right. Where the pressure is actually coming from transport, the cost should be borne in the transport budget, which is Auckland Transport. Now, maybe Rose could just expand as to how we got to decide that. I wasn't aware of it, but it is an issue local boards and other parts of our organisation, the core organisation, are grappling with.
So you let me know, through the chair, sorry, you let me know about a particular instance in Sunnynock where the local board was being asked to pay for the cost of a study. My understanding, and Scott might want to speak to this a bit more, is that sometimes that well, Auckland Council, Auckland Transport will always have a look at what need there is. You know, so it's not just because the facility manager says so. They'll always do their own investigation. Now, sometimes they might want to call in for extra assistance on that investigation. Scott, would you like to comment?
Yeah, through the chair, I think that the costs approach was designed for, say, a library where the library has their own parking demand. I admit that this situation is different because the demand is actually coming from a from the busway station, a transport station. But Auckland Transport's happy to work through the local board and the owner to do an investigation. I think the cost of the actual signage should be borne by whoever the manager of that parking is. In this case, I believe it's Parks in Sunnynock.
Yep.
So why should it be borne by the owner of that asset when the pressure is actually not coming from the owner of that asset? The pressure is coming from transport.
You need bigger parks.
So they're crossing the boundary into a park and using a park and ride, and then there is, to make sure that that asset can be used efficiently by the users that it's designed for, park users and community facility, it has to go to the expense of putting in signage. It just doesn't add up for me. It's an issue, it's unresolved, and I don't think I want to debate this in any length right here, but Mr. Chair, this will pop up in other parts of Auckland as we get busier, and I'd like to see it resolved, and I'd like to see Auckland Transport take some responsibility for a pretty minuscule cost, but it's a major cost for a local board budget.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Cathy?
Well, just a query on the strategy. I'm on page 389, and it's parking enforcement. Parking enforcement services carried out by Auckland Transport include the following. And I'm reading all these things. Is there any enforcement of monitoring of cycleways? Just not listed here.
Through the chair, yes, Auckland Transport does enforce cycleways. So that's vehicles parked in cycleways.
It's not listed in your list of things that parking enforcement does, which is on page 389. So you might like to check that, unless I can't see it.
Which part of the
I'm
which
on
page?
the strategy itself, my page 389, your page 33.
33.
It says here, monitoring all clearways, bus lanes and transit lanes at different stages of the day. I'd quite like to see the word cycle lanes in there. Thank you.
Point taken.
Road rage this morning. I'll meet the complaint tomorrow.
Anything else? Right, I'll move it. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. We need to move an extension of time for 1 hour. Hopefully we'll be able to deal with it within that time frame.
Aye. Second.
I'll move that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Asked.